a bit more dive heavy compositions with the Hecarim being that frontline engage, and it hasn't gone too successfully. So maybe they pick it up later, but for now, WE could just take the Jinx in this situation, right? The trade off the AD carries, and they can pick a jungler for themselves as well. We often see jungle AD carry on this rotation on red side in the LPL. I mean, globally, honestly, in drafts, just because you don't really commit too much, right? It's the trade off AD carries, and then your jungler doesn't really solidify your comp so heavily. It looks like they might actually steal away not just the Jinx, but also the Hecarim, which we've seen BLG play 2 games in a row.
Beishan goes for that Hecarim, taking it away from WeiWei. You're absolutely right. This is WE just basically taking BLG's drafts to their comfort picks away from them right now. And I'm really curious what WeiWei will choose to lock in against this Hecarim, because I feel like this is an opportunity to be aggressive in the way that we've been asking. Like, if you go for a Xin Zhao, for example, you could be more aggressive. It's the Veigar. It's not aggressive.
It is BLG on blue side and WE on red side, by the way, just to make it clear. We haven't got these mixed up. It just seems they're swapping, right? They've swapped AD carries, they've swapped jungle, they've exchanged toys. We do see, however, Crisp gets hands to the Nautilus, something that we have seen banned away. First rotation game 1, second rotation game 2. The response to from WE is going to be that Tahm Kench again. So we did talk about in that game 1, one of the downsides to WE's comp is that they lack the engage. With the Hecarim there, you have plenty. So the Tahm Kench perfectly fine to keep the Jinx safe. Now, going to the second rotation, both teams look at the solo laners. So I feel like for BLG, potentially concerned about something that you can counter pick top. Maybe concerned about something like the Orianna. I actually think Orianna would be sick for WE this game. Obviously, buffs up the Jinx, and you have the ball delivery with a Hecarim. So I think they should ban that. WE are kind of banning some of these more pressure-focused mids, right? We see the Vex banned. Things like the Syndra are on a similar vein. We actually see Jace being banned first and foremost away from BiuBiu.
Yeah, I mean, Jace has always been a relatively safe blind pick up in that top side. I've gone Scottish for a second there. But we'll see if some of that... It could be a Graves span as well, is where I was going to go with that one before I distracted myself from BLG. Whereas WE likely to go for another mid lane ban here. Try to set up Shanks for success. But Shanks' favourite pick of the split so far, which is Camille taken, has been that Twisted Fate, which still totally open and available.
Yeah, definitely potential for it, and especially if you have counter pick on the top lane, you can really look to bully that one out, lean over and make sure that BiuBiu not only has a good matchup but also has helped to crush the lane. I still think for me the Orianna stands out as being so broken with WE's comp, and they will ban it away, which for any BLG fans, you should be very happy about that one. Now, WE, if there's like a standout blind you want top lane, something like the Graves, you could absolutely pick that here. Alternatively, there's a bunch of mid lane mages. There's even these roaming options that we've talked about that you can take. Although potentially looking towards the Akali, like, you know, we saw this played last game by FoFo. The dive potential is there for the composition. And on top of that, this is a flex, right? This can go mid or top. So it kind of keeps BLG guessing. It'd be very interesting if we saw FoFo pick up the Veigar in response to this.
If FoFo doesn't lock in Veigar here, like, I mean, you have to, right? You surely have to. This is just the perfect moment to say, hey, I'm the better mid laner. We'll see if FoFo is willing to make that play. It's going to be the top lane locked in for Breathe with that Kennen. I'm just saying, Kennen and Veigar, that's a pretty spicy combo. Maybe the double purple yordles are locked in. Maybe not. We'll have to see.
Yeah, and the Kennen does a great job of dealing with dive threats. Because obviously when you charge in and there's the slicing maelstrom, it's not only going to disrupt your backline, but just the AoE stun is huge. But also Victor, often we see compositions where they have that, they pair it up with the AD carry, they help the peel. It looks like they might be eyeing up the possibility of corki, however, and they're going to lock it in, right? And the thing is, I feel like corki kind of suits FoFo's playstyle, right? Not the most active in lane, pops off later down the line. So a lot of value from this pick. If they can get to those later stages of the game. The range is obviously problematic. WE, I'm not as big of a fan of the Veigar in this situation. Obviously here, BLG, they kind of want to play the long range with the poke from the corki. They want you diving in, but they're still going to commit to it, interestingly enough. So WE, kind of a mixed ball in terms of what their composition offers. They have the strong backliners in terms of the Jinx and the Veigar, but they have these dive threats in the top jungle, whereas BLG, I feel like their comp for the first time like has a lot of cohesion between it compared to some of the other drafts they've had so far.
And once again, very focused on the late game right Right, very focused on the team fight. Later on, Doggo can scale up, FoFo can scale up. Massive amounts of poke damage will be coming out of that corki later on. You've got Breathe for the huge ults, the huge engages alongside Crisp there, and WeiWei. Once all of that kicks off, if he can get the resets going, take over the game. We'll see if it's going to be enough for BLG though, because up against essentially a lot of their previous comp, right? A lot of the stuff that they've been prioritizing in this series, WE have gone for alongside that Tahm Kench, and then this Veigar lane coming out from Shanks once again. I'm excited to see what he's going to be able to do with that pick, whether he's going to be able to use it to the same effect now that he's not necessarily in the sort of counter matchup that we saw last game.
Yeah, and I actually think that specifically in talking like champion versus champion, Veigar feels very ineffective against corki, especially the Coke Porky, right? I keep doing that. I say Poke Porky instead of Poke Corki. I feel like one of the things is that because you outrange so heavily, there should never, ever, ever be a scenario where you can cage corki and he's trapped in it, or, you know, he's actually in range to connect with it. Unless he's like packaging in, and if he's flying into your team with a package, he's either one inting, or two, he's just absolutely smashed the team. So either way, I don't really think that you land in the cage makes too much of a difference, but he definitely had a good game before on the Veigar. We'll see if he's able to bring out again. And once more, I expect him though to be moving a bit faster in the play, because FoFo playing the corki, we've already seen him be fairly inactive in the laning phase, and this is just going to exemplify it.
And realistically, I'm looking towards this top lane as well here. Breathe up against his old team with some extremely aggressive words coming into the game about his old teammates. He's got a Kennen. He's got a pick that he can really individually influence the game on. Feel like he's the one that needs to step up and stop this upset happening for BLG. We have to remember, WE are 1-7 right now, but with Beisheng rejoining the team, it feels like we've had such a drastic change of playstyle from these guys. And I'm honestly, I'm a little bit excited for WE. I'm a little bit excited. The game is only just beginning. Maybe they can make it happen, though. Maybe WE, if they can find an advantage early on again, can manage to make this upset happen and get themselves back into the league. Because right now, honestly, they're on the cusp of just straight up not making it to playoffs.
Yeah, and it's been a painful start of the split. I talked a bit about this earlier today, but it does feel like the schedule gets easier as the split goes on. It doesn't account for 1-7 scoreline. It also isn't really an excuse for all of their gameplay, but I do feel like if they pick up the play as they have been with Beisheng joining the roster, there is still hope for them alive. There is still opportunity, but time is swiftly running out, and getting a win here against BLG would make a massive difference, not just in terms of the actual absolute score, but also just the confidence for the team.
Yeah, I mean, the momentum. I mean, we talked a little bit about strength of schedule earlier on in the broadcast as well, where, you know, WE, the start of their year, it was a tough one. Like, when you look at the games that they had to start this year off on, they had to face against WeiWei, which nobody thought much of at the time, but turns out WeiWei kind of good at the game right now. Then they had to go against V5, basically the other team that's challenging WeiWei for the top of the table right now. They had to play top esports, LNG, JDG, EDG. Like, these are all big names that they had to face off to start their split off. And we talked about what that does in terms of your standings, but there's also like the mental aspect of that, right? When you go on a big losing streak to start your split, it's going to be very difficult to maintain a positive atmosphere within the team.
Yeah, as much as what some toxic fans might think, no one wants to go 1-7, right? They're not choosing this situation. Sometimes, well, someone ends up having to lose, and I'm hoping that W gets the bounce back, and it really feels like they are feeling more alive.
You say sometimes someone happens to lose, like every time somebody has to lose. That is the way that it goes, unfortunately.
Sometimes both teams lose. We've absolutely seen that before.
Well, that's true. That's definitely true. It's rare that we see both teams win, though. In fact, I'm not sure we've ever seen that. But WE, honestly, maybe they'd be happy with that. If they could go for a tie in this series, the first ever tie in LPL, I think they'd be okay with that one.
Well, you see, Oh, hang on. That's no mana.
Oh, Shanks, he's He does have his flash available, but stunned up. In comes his jungler, but it's too late. Beisheng late to the play, and a very nice setup there by WeiWei. He gets to be a yordle for a moment as he skips merrily back into the jungle.
a rare opportunity, a rare moment where FoFo gets a gank in the mid lane and they're able to deliver. Now, WeiWei applying some pressure here, but Shanks is going to be back on the map in just a moment.
Yeah, WeiWei might have gone too deep for this one because FoFo is underneath his tower. It's a 1v1 for now. Shanks trying to get over there with the Predator, but I'm not even sure he's needed. WeiWei, oh, turns it around! Last possible second and gets himself a reset. Shanks, you got to finish this kill off, but he can't. The speed comes out from WeiWei, and it looked like Beisheng was winning the 1v1, but Viego, the ruined king himself, completely ruining WE.
Ends up winning out in the extended fight. Conqueror, a big factor in that, no doubt, with the fully stacked up, whereas the phase rush has the instant impact, but doesn't really carry through, and we'll have the replay. Feels like, obviously, this situation, it felt like WeiWei was kind of overcommitting, right? You don't have the backup from your team. I think Shanks comes in here, the cage goes down, and then he's able to not actually get stunned, just on the edge of it there.
Oh, Beisheng now trying to make some impact on the side lanes as well, and Breathe realizes that he's doomed.
That's what he gets for those comments before the game.
yeah, perhaps Beisheng saw the interview, but either way, Breathe actually doing a very good job so far. Akali very weak in the early game, and so Breathe has a big CS lead to work with. So this is more damage control from Beisheng than anything else.
Yeah, we do see Kedaya just moved off from bot lane, so there's a window where BLG were potentially fishing for stay to overstep, but the ward will give them the information. And WeiWei, he's been pretty aggressive on this Viego pick, trying to challenge the enemy jungle and find opportunities. We'll just start up the dragon now.
Hang on, let's just take a moment here, all, and appreciate the fact that we're seeing the junglers gang. It's BLG versus WE. Game number 3 is all it took. The junglers to gank in the early game. WeiWei being proactive, Beisheng being proactive. This is great to see. This is so much more fun.
I will say Beisheng does try and gank a fair bit. It's really just WeiWei who is kind of a little bit lax. But also, one thing I will comment on is this is like the 3rd game in a row. I mean, no, this is the 3rd game in the series. It just feels like every game Beisheng just ganks top around the same time, and Breathe just keeps dying to it. Like, you feel like at this point, you know, having been on a team with him as well, and also him doing the same thing multiple times in a row, you would think he'd have conned on by now. But maybe if you go to a game 4, then he'll not die to that early gank.
Maybe. It's a big maybe, though. We'll have to wait and see if Breathe is capable of learning. Only time will tell. But massive CS lead, at least. He may not be learning from the previous games, but he is 20 CS up in his matchup. So we'll give him props for that at very least. And almost 10 CS lead for FoFo in that mid lane, as well as Beisheng. Really would like to finish that big chicken off. Does manage to do so. Can he get out with his life, though? Just about. Hit level 6 off of that chicken. Now Shanks walks into the brush very confidently. I think maybe a little too confidently. I'm not sure BLG were ready for it. They weren't expecting him to just face check like that.
Yeah, I think as well you have to be concerned about the cage. I think that's why Shanks felt so confident, because he had his E available and he was like, I'm going to march forward, trap them in this. But especially having the control ward in that brush next to Raptors makes it very hard to fight around there. And we talk about the big power spike that's offered by the ultimate from the Hecarim, now down and unavailable, and WeiWei continuing this plan of his just to permanently play aggressive in the enemy jungle.
You in the brush will find a shuriken here, but Breathe is like, you know what? I'm happy to take this trade. I know you can't go in on me. Happy to just keep getting that damage down at the top side. This huge wave for Stay. He has fallen behind in CS off the back of that last passage of play, but be able to redeem himself somewhat off of that wave that was just crashing there. And so we kind of reset once more and go back to a slower pace of play between these two teams, as Beisheng now trying to invade on the bottom side. Perhaps can find himself a red bull.
So finally get a bit of a counter, and he has the assistance from his team to lean over there. Just make sure he has some cover. WeiWei's clearing up on the top side, so no real contest going to come down from this. And actually, I feel like WE can potentially get a little bit more here, right? They have BiuBiu walking down on this side of the map. This is really an easy dive to set up.
Hook for Crisp, though, as Doggo just charges forward, and PLG are like, you know what? If you're going to try and set up a dive on us, we're just going to 2v2 you before it can happen. But Beishang now arriving. BiuBiu behind the plate as well. Doggo in trouble. In goes the Akali. The exhaust onto Doggo as well. There's no damage coming out onto WE. Now the tower's starting to stack up, but Beishang survives at least for now. One more tick will not do the job. And it's a double kill for BiuBiu. And it's so huge that BiuBiu will be back in this top lane matchup. That said, look at that CS deficit.
Yeah, pretty substantial. The 2 kills definitely mitigate that, and they will deliver on some plates here to make it up in return. Big wave being lost and Breed hammering down as well. And actually, you gotta take a look at the inventory of BiuBiu in this situation. You know, you were talking about this a little bit before. You know what phase builds into Munchables?
I have a sneaking suspicion
it
might
ain't
be
a
a slightly
belt.
larger hammer.
It seems like he might be on the hype train. They will throw it on the Herald, and this should just take the tower here pretty much.
Yeah, I really hope BLG aren't building any ships today, because the hulls will be in trouble. That is for sure. BiuBiu going to be able to clear this wave. The tower doesn't quite fall, so a silver lining for WE here, but this top gap is rough for the side of WE. The fact that you're 2-0-1 on this Akali and still 500 gold down, that says a lot about how many plates, how much CS Breed has managed to find for himself.
Yeah, and I do have an important question for you. Would you say that Corki's little plane thing has a hull?
No, it has a rib cage because it's a dog.
There we go.
I've never heard anyone refer to a dog's chest as a hull before, so I'm going to say definitively no on that one.
So good skin choice from FoFo to defend himself from a potentially precarious situation.
Had it been Red Baron Corki, we would have been in trouble. But luckily, he went for the dog.
Keeps himself safe for the time being. BiuBiu actually feels like he's fishing for an all-in here, which honestly,
ultimately,
being a Akali, I could see him winning it.
Yeah, and especially when he's got Shanks and Beishang just off the side of the wave as well.
Then that's not a 1v1, you know. A little bit unbalanced on those numbers. You see FoFo has picked up the package, so they will grab the dragon off the back of this.
I saw the Predator and I got excited. He's just there to clear the wave. WeiWei going for the Drake here. That'll be the second Drake back-to-back here for BLG as well. So, nice. I will say, it's not very fair, is it? That WeiWei's name starts with WE. I don't know why that hurts my brain so much, but it's managing to make me get these teams the wrong way around so many times. Every time I'm talking about WeiWei. WE. But fantastic start here for BLG. And crucially, that's the thing that we've been lacking from them. In this series so far, we kept on talking about how little they like to go for the Herald, how little they like to go for the Dragon in the early game. But now, managing to find both of those to start this one off in their favor. Really nice to see BLG adapting across the course of this series.
And especially when you have the Corki, getting early dragons is so scary, because from now on, that package is going to be synced with every single dragon from here on forwards. And so it makes the team fights very hard. Normally, you know, the Corki gives you a lot less presence in the mid lane early. The other team picks up the early dragons, and then you start stacking from that third one where suddenly the Corki team is like, we're going to be really strong every dragon from here. Because BLG are the team with 2, it puts a lot of pressure onto WE.
The question will be, though, the eternal struggle of all LPL mid laners. Can FoFo figure out how to use the package? It's been the eternal battle that we've seen across the course of this split. Some mid laners have figured it out. Xiaohu, for example, some amazing packages. Yucal, not so much, you know. We've seen a very mixed bag when it comes to these LPL top laners and using the package on the corki. So, FoFo, your time is now. Let's see if he can work that one out. As Breed will be able to finish this tower off on the top side. So, nice bit of gold influx for him. That will be the first tower of the game. Using it to just deny as many minions as he can before he finishes that off as well. So smart play coming out from Breed. You'll love to see it.
Yeah, and he has a massive gold lead. You can see across the board, you know, bot lane, they is marginally ahead. But mid lane, huge advantage for FoFo. Jungle, 700 gold. Top lane, 1,300. Not a good omen to be this far behind this early into the game.
It's really not, especially against a team that, you know, they don't really play for the early game usually. They play for that late game, and now with an early game lead, with early game objectives as well, that late game comes a lot quicker. That's the key thing, that it's not just about BLG doing nothing for hours. It's like, well, if they can find a lead, as soon as they get an advantage, they will push it. As soon as they get to 2-3 items, they will find more. They will close the game out. It's not like they're afraid of just ending the game. So BLG in a phenomenal position here. And I want to just highlight Breathe and BiuBiu once again. Like, we talked about how these guys were kind of rivals to some extent a couple of splits ago. It feels like that is a long and distant memory at this point, as Breathe having a massive advantage in my mind, being far away the better top laner across the course of this series, aside from the early ganks that he just has not been respecting. The Hullbreaker is finished for BiuBiu, so I mean, maybe he's going to show us some crazy dark tech split push technology.
I mean,
that can win the game.
In fairness, Akali does actually have... Oh, I see Shanks in trouble.
We are seeing Shanks in trouble. There's no might about that one, but WeiWei whiffs the ult. He didn't know which direction Shanks had gone in. It doesn't matter, though, because WeiWei's playing Viego, and now he's playing Veigar. All about the Vs today, apparently, as Kedaya has to flash over the wall. That Event Horizon, so scary. WeiWei will be able to grab himself a blue buff. Minute and a half until the Drake comes up. Herald up in 10 seconds, though. It's WE that have control of the top side.
And they could look for this Herald right before the package is available. Might be a window which they can get something. And just about the Hullbreaker Akali, she does actually have decent AD ratios for an AP champion. Like, a lot of her abilities do scale with AD, so I can kind of understand the thought process to some extent. But definitely a bit of a unique one that we haven't seen too much of now. It looks like WE putting a lot of resources in this top side, and time is ticking for this Dragon time up. They are going to try and dive Breathe.
They are going to go for this one. It's dangerous to dive. A Kennen, though, Baishuk so low, but Kedaya saves his life. BiuBiu gets out barely with his life. Has to kill the minion just to survive. Crisp, can he answer? That's a dangerous recall. BiuBiu has the shuriken flip to get over the wall. Crisp won't be able to punish him. Very nicely done here by WE.
I will say, though, that pretty much guarantees they're not going to contest in that Dragon, right? Look at the ults for WE that are unavailable now off the back of that. No ult for the Hecarim, none for the Veigar, none for the Akali as well, or the Tahm, Kench. But they managed to pull this off, right? Dive comes in, you have to see the ult from Baishuk into the gobble to keep him safe. And then BiuBiu able to use his second ult charge to get out of tower range. But again, right? Package was picked up there by FoFo. Don't have the tools from WE to really fight this Dragon, so it is pretty much guaranteed their Dragon for BLG. On top of that, they're using the pressure to also pick up the Herald. So yeah, WE got a kill, BLG get everything else.
And again, this is not how BLG usually plays. They don't usually bother with the early objectives, but especially if WE aren't really going to contest, aren't going to put themselves in a position to fight for these objectives, of course BLG are going to take them. They're going to have themselves a free Dragon here. They got themselves the Herald already. Very nicely done here by BLG. This is clean play coming out from them. And, you know, we always talk about how they're slow, but they're clean in the early game. Well, this has not been anywhere near as slow as what we're used to. And it's good to see them pushing the envelope a little bit here. Now on Soul Point, it's 17 minutes. That's not a sentence I think I've ever said about BLG.
Yeah, and they are continuing to drive the pace of this game. WE are fishing for these opportunities, but not really finding anything. And as the game goes on, I am struggling to see it a bit, especially this corki. You know, Manamune stacking, Luden's already completed. It is going to be a massive problem. It really feels like BLG have to start making some fumbles for WE to close the gap here. BiuBiu's going to be present in that side lane. And again, Akali's not like the fastest tower taker. The Hullbreaker is definitely going to help, and it's kind of annoying for the Kennen to hold. Like, Kennen does not enjoy... Like, his goal is to team fight, right? He doesn't want to be dealing with these super buffed cannon minions. But I'm not exactly super ambitious about BiuBiu's chance to, you know, backdoor end the game.
You know, I don't know. We'll have to see. And I want to clarify on the points on this Akali build as well. It's not like we're trying to flame BiuBiu for the build. I'm sure there's value in this Hullbreaker for Akali. Like you said, there's some AD scalings and things. It's just... The reason that you pick Akali is not usually to be in that side lane, right? It's usually to get involved in the skirmishes and threaten the backline, which the Hullbreaker not necessarily going to bring the same value as a lot of other items would. So, bit of a tough one. We'll see what BiuBiu can do, though, because, again, I'm hoping we can see some kind of interesting strats here and maybe see something that is going to be a bounty at very least taken, but it's traded for a tier 2 in this top side as the Herald has dropped. I'm sure there's much that WE can really do about it.
Yeah, a lot more gold for that Corki and that Viego. Definitely becoming very scary. And you can see WeiWei actually has like a 40 CS lead over Baishuk. They're going to get the second charge as well. a bit of a disaster right now for the side of WE. 4,000 gold lead. Like, kind of just feels like they're following BLG around, but not really able to do too much to them.
Yeah, to be honest, it's getting to the point where this is feeling kind of over for WE, and the game is barely started. We're 19 minutes in, you know. It's not...
Especially compared to game one, which was 48 minutes, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Game's still young.
I know, this is not the way that we usually see BLG win, but hey, if you're a BLG fan, this should fill you with a little bit more confidence that BLG can change their style, can play more aggressive, and can win the early game as well, because that's something that felt incredibly lacking across the course of this series so far. Honestly, I was coming out of this series with huge question marks for BLG, and I'm certainly not saying they've resolved all of them, but this one at least gives you a little bit more confidence again.
And honestly, I feel like this game is going to hit critical mass in 2 minutes, right? Hextech Soul, especially for a corki, those long-range rockets getting extra damage and slowing, incredibly suffocating. If you look at his items, right, his mana immune will be stacked up for that dragon. He's got a stopwatch in pocket. I feel like if they win the fight and they get the Dragon Soul, that is probably just it. So WE need to find the angle of approach for that one.
Do whether or not they will. I mean, my eyes are on BiuBiu. I want to see him pop off on the Hullbreaker Akali, just prove everyone wrong, show us that apparently Hullbreaker is just the best item on literally every champion in the top lane. We'll see, though. Shanks, as well, has been stacking up this entire time. You can never quite forget the Veigar, even if he hasn't had a lead in the early game. Chris getting aggressed upon by BiuBiu here, and actually will just go down. No, has a stopwatch, buys some time for himself, but BiuBiu can't finish this kill off. Now he's the one caught, flashes over the wall, but in goes WeiWei to finish the job. Breathe behind the play as well. This is gorgeous from BLG. Completely outplaying WE. They're looking like a different team to what we've seen for the rest of the series as Doggo just tries to finish off Kedaya. Won't be able to do so, but hey, we've got a bonus blue buff. Actually, no, they don't. Survived on 2 HP and reset, but maybe a Baron can be the consolation prize.
Yeah, if they get the Baron before the dragon even spawns, then it would be even more devastating. BLG 5-member strong heading over. Beisheng will respawn. May be able to actually get there in time, especially with the Hextech gate. So see how that goes. But this fight, you know, they look for Chris, but you're committing so heavily onto the support who also has the stasis to buy time. A lot of resources invested to try and take down this Nautilus, and it just meant they had nothing left, right? Great flank from Breathe here. Not only just deletes the Hecarim, but by hitting the Jinx as well, forces Kedaya to ult stay instead, and then it's just already over from this point.
And I don't want to overstate the point. I don't want to belabor the point too much, but BiuBiu with his ult would have finished Crisp if he'd gone AP, right? That is a Hullbreaker diff right there in the fight. And now BLG looking strong, looking well positioned as they try and contest onto this Drake. Up in 10 seconds time, the whole squad will be here as FoFo moves on over with that package in tow. I will say, the package maybe does have a hull. Perhaps BiuBiu can break it. We'll have to wait and see. Drake started off here. This would be solved for BLG if they can get the smite. They're happy for a 50-50. They don't actually have that much to lose in the grand scheme of things. In with the engage, but Beisheng is already gone, vanished before our eyes. A great package from FoFo, and I think that might be all she wrote on this one, as BLG just wiped the floor with WE. It's going to be a clean ace as FoFo flashes for the kill onto Kedaya, and there's nothing more in this one. Kedaya wants a tasty snack before the game ends, but that's all he'll get.
Yeah, I mean, just crushed them in the fight. Now they're 10,000 gold lead. Baron's still in hand for a minute 45, and they got the Hextech Soul. BLG weren't too happy about that game 2 loss. Honestly, with this game, it feels like they weren't too happy with how long game 1 took. They are trying to finish this one as quickly as possible.
There is a competition going on between a lot of teams on who can speedrun WE the fastest. BLG are certainly not going to be winning that competition after a 50-minute game number 1 and losing game number 2, but at least they're making up for lost time in game number 3. Grabbing the soul, and again, this is exactly what we've seen from Hecarim all series long. Dive in, get one shot.
Yeah, and BiuBiu, I'm just going to say, ults in onto the package. Not exactly the greatest play we've seen out of a Hullbreaker Akali, but in fact, the only play we've seen out of a Hullbreaker Akali.
I was going to say, it is the greatest play we've seen out of a Hullbreaker Akali. because it is the only one. It's by default the best and worst simultaneously. Crisp caught once again. Can he survive this time as well? So far, so good for him. Is Kedaya the target taken down? We're just going to get ults out across the board. Beishang escapes with his life as WeiWei wants a little more. Turns himself into Thomas for a little while. Shanks falls apart in the top side. WeiWei looks for BiuBiu. Won't find it. BLG. Slowly but surely now with Soul and Baron. I mean, there is no defense possible.
Yeah, I mean, they are just absolutely destroying them right now. There's nothing really they can do to hold up, and the gold advantage is so massive. The Soul on top of that. This kind of just feels over and done. We had hope with that game 2 from WE.
No.
It kind of feels like it's... I knew you'd make that joke. I knew you'd make that joke. I was going to say hope earlier this series, and I knew you'd make that joke, so I didn't. And then I fall for it here.
Sorry, mate.
Whatever, man.
I'm just a bad person.
You are, really.
But you know what? That's okay. By my own standard, I guess. I'll just absolve myself, so no worries. It's a 13k gold lead. I'm just going to move on. 13k gold lead down for BLG. I mean, we can take another look at this fight, but it felt like WE kind of make a desperation play.
And it feels like a repeat of the fight around the dragon, where it's like, hey, let's kill Crisp. And then they realize, okay, burning all our resources onto a support, maybe not the best idea, especially when you don't even kill him at all in this play. But WE definitely feeling desperate. But it feels like it's kind of a rough one right now. Mid and top inhibitors down. BLG pushing in that bot wave. Currently a 13,000 gold advantage. You can see it in the items across the board pretty much. All right.
And with the Soul, let's add a little bit of value to that as well. But without Baron, it does become a little more difficult. But with Supers pushing in the top two sides, top two lanes,
and you know,
it'll still slowly but surely go the way of BLG.
I've been really negative, but technically, if WE can just stall the game out, Veigar does scale infinitely.
While that is true, I'm not predicting that scenario is going to come to pass as we watch literally every structure get shredded before our eyes. BLG just going to dodge the ult from Beishang as well and just body him as he gets sent back to his fountain. Sent packing as the whole team from WE will. Good hook from Crisp onto Shanks. And in goes the ulti. 369. Oh wait, no, that's Breathe. Got the wrong top laner in my head. It's 369. He's the only Kennen player in the league this split. But an amazing ult from Breathe. And it's going to be the end of the game.
Yeah, it feels like WE maybe 30 minutes short of where they were hoping to be in this one. They just get absolutely dismantled.
End it. Just let it end, please. BLG will finish things off.
Will they? Eventually,
I've entered it almost as hard as WE, but not quite as hard.
Yeah, that was a rough one, right? I mean, game 2, I feel like game 1, they came in with a draft where I had a lot of things that made sense, but they were kind of missing that hard engage. Game 2, their draft was actually really stellar. The Veigar pick, standout. Game 3, it just didn't make sense. Veigar and corki, not really going to do anything, right? And it felt like FoFo was just a lot of free scale. They got the early dragons, they got the package, and then from there, it was just kind of over. The whole breaker Akali, I'm also not convinced on. Not really sure what it